Hello, Jaimee, and welcome to our podcast. How are you today?
I'm good, Donna. Thank you. How are you?
Really good. Thank you for joining us today or joining me today. So I'm super excited to talk about your passion and profession. You are an oral facial myofunctional therapist, which we're going to go into great big detail about all of the things that you can do to help our children with their teeth and jaw, I suppose is what it is. But if you can explain what that means to the listeners, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. So, an orofacial myofunctional therapist is someone who looks at function of the oral and facial muscles. And there are a number of reasons why we do that. If there are dysfunction of those muscles, can lead to other health issues. So, we want to make sure those muscles are functioning correctly.
Yeah. And the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about, obviously, as a sleep specialist, as a mum, is thumb sucking is huge.
Hmm.
Dummy
Yep.
use.
Yep.
All of our girls have had braces
Yep.
and they're teenagers now. One of the daughters, particularly, had quite, we ended up calling her Bucky Beaver, which is terrible. When she was little, it was through the dummy. So the thumb sucking is really interesting to me because that's um, a self, for babies, it's just a self-soothing. So when they're little, and I'm working with children as a sleep specialist, you can't keep taking that thumb out when they're 6 months or 7 months of age. So as a sleep specialist, I go, just let them do it. But then this is why I want to talk to someone like you, because I knew there must be professions that can help children as they get older with the thumb sucking. So yeah, so thumb sucking, let's start with thumb sucking. So
Sure.
the
Sure.
children naturally do it. It's really self-soothing. They actually really love it, but it can really cause teeth issues and muscle issues in the jaw. Can't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, thumb sucking and dummy sucking, any type of sucking habit, like you said, is very self soothing. And the reason for that is when the kids are sucking on something, first of all, they get a release of serotonin, makes them feel calm.
Yep.
That serotonin will then convert to melatonin,
Mhm.
which is going to help them fall asleep and stay asleep.
Mhm.
Okay, so sucking on something can be just a blessing
Love it. We
for
we
a
talk
mother.
about it sometimes. Like one of the parents said to me, "Oh, it's like this is really awful when we're saying with babies," but he said it's like crack cocaine. Like
Yeah,
the baby puts a dummy in and the eyes roll back, and I'm like, "I know it's
yeah,
not say that about a baby, but it really
absolutely.
isn't it?" Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Mm.
It really is. The problem is when the sucking continues for an extended period of time, and that can have an impact on the bones
Yep.
and the muscles of the mouth.
Right. And so when we had to do it with Molly, literally we were going to the dentist and
Yep.
they said it. I think she was nearly 3, and
Yep.
that night we got rid of it. But we'd already seen the teeth starting to be a bit bucked. So as
Yes.
in your profession and what you see, when would be that time to either look at getting rid of it or looking to get help with that thumb sucking, or where do you start to see that the changes in the jaw and the teeth start to happen?
So my advice differs from dummies to thumb sucking. So I'm
Yep.
going to start with thumb sucking first of all. So thumb sucking, it can just be a simple habit,
Mm.
but it can also be a sign that something else is going on. So I'm up to about 7 reasons for
Okay.
ongoing thumb sucking
Thumb
or finger
sucking.
suckings. You do see finger suckers as well
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there can be quite a few reasons for that. And that might be an issue with breathing.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you
Or
run
it
through
could,
the 7? I'd love to hear the 7.
yeah. So let me just see if I can get them all because
Yeah, that's
sometimes
right.
I can't. Okay.
It's
So
early.
we can have airway issues.
Yep.
We can have sleep issues,
Yep.
like an actual sleep disorder.
Cool.
We can have issues with gut health.
Ooh.
We can have a tongue tie.
Yeah.
We can have like a sensory seeking behavior.
Mhm.
Okay. We can have birth trauma.
Ooh.
And we can have psychological reasons. So we
Yeah.
can have a little child
Anxiety.
who's struggling with anxiety and that kind of thing.
Yep, that makes all complete sense. Okay, so then, yeah, so obviously if someone came to you, so yes, getting back to that, those 7 points make a lot of sense. And obviously what I see with children and having my own, because I work with up to 7-year-olds, it's very
Yeah,
hard to see if it's sort of anxiety when they're little, but
yeah,
definitely once you get to toddlers and up to 7, you can really start to see that it's an anxiety thing.
yeah,
Get stressed. So
yeah.
yeah, so that's something that you can sort of figure out once you see the child and help with all of that, not just the thumb sucking, or
So when I initially see someone because of an oral habit, it's a 1 hour appointment. I spend a lot of time assessing all of these possible reasons, just asking a million questions to both the parent and the child. And then each person's treatment plan is going to differ. So if we have a child who is really, really struggling with anxiety, is it the best thing for that child to take away that thumb?
true.
So, or do we need to address that anxiety,
Yeah.
get them some alternate strategies
Mhm.
to manage their anxiety, and then address the thumb? So, or they might work with someone like a child psychologist, a play therapist, counselor, someone like that who has that in their scope of practice to manage, and then they might be able to outgrow the habit on their own.
Sure, sure. And then so, yeah, everything has so many deep layers, don't they? So
Yeah.
then say, for example, you've got a child that ends up being a stress thing,
Yep.
and it is a soothing tool, and the parents are able to work on the sort of stress point, then are you able to, what do you do then if sort of the teeth are starting to get bucked, or tell me a little bit about what you do?
So
Yeah.
I use a oral habit cessation program that was developed by Carla Laharaga, who is a dental hygienist from Queensland, and she's considered one of the world experts on oral habits. So she developed this really, really fantastic program. She developed it out of need because her daughter was a thumb sucker.
Yeah.
And I like it because it's a simple program that a child from sort of 5 and up can take it on a lot themselves. So they can take ownership of that habit. It's
Mhm.
also quite empowering for the child. And I work with them one on one. So it's not just mum saying, you
No,
need to
yeah,
stop
for sure,
sucking that
definitely.
thumb,
Yeah, that doesn't work. You say no
it,
to a child or don't do it, they'll go behind the wall and do it, like.
exactly. Exactly. So I quite often say to parents, like, one of the biggest things about this program is I'm not you.
Yeah,
I'm someone else to be accountable to. And the program is really, really successful. It's not 100% successful, but I think it's about 89%
right.
successful.
Mm,
Yeah.
right. And do you have to have people, do you have to have the families come into your practice, or can you do some of this online on Zoom or anything?
Yeah, so I offer in-clinic appointments
Yep,
in Canberra, where I live,
yep.
and I also can see people telehealth as well.
Hey,
So
that's
there's
right.
a lot of There's a lot. There are other thumb sucking professionals out there. That's what we call ourselves once we've completed the training in oral
Yep,
habit cessation. Okay, but not widespread. So I see people from small country towns online who just don't have
right.
access to someone in person.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's the thing, like the world that we live in now, like I would say 70% of my clients are worldwide. So they're not in Perth. I love going to see my clients if they're in Perth, but I love that in our professions like this, we can help worldwide. Like
It's a good feeling, isn't it? It's a
it's
really
amazing.
good feeling.
Amazing, because as the kids get a little bit older, then and they get conscious of thumb sucking, and it's like either a bit of an anxiety thing, or they, like they want to not do it, but it's
Yeah,
like biting your nails. I mean, I have had a habit of biting my nails, and it's really
yeah,
bad. It was something
yeah,
from a child, and if I get stressed, I don't even know I'm doing it, and someone will be like,
exactly.
"Biting your nails," and I'm like, "Oh." This is the same with the
Yeah,
thumb, and that was
yeah,
an anxiety thing, now on reflection.
yeah,
So that's fantastic. So thumb sucking's huge. So obviously
exactly.
you're working with exercises and stuff like that.
Not straight away. So the first thing we need to do is get the thumb out of the mouth,
Okay.
right? Because a few reasons. We
Yeah.
don't want to overload a child.
Sure.
So we just want to focus on one thing at a time. Like if I see a 9-year-old who's been sucking since infancy,
Yeah.
to get that thumb out of the
Oh,
mouth, that's a big change for them. So we do one thing at a time.
that's right.
And then depending on how much of an impact the thumb sucking has had on the mouth, I might go straight from an oral habit cessation program to an assessment by an orthodontist. because unfortunately those habits, they will tend to make the upper jaw narrow. And that's just from all of those big, strong cheek muscles sucking in.
Yeah. What was I going to say then? Gosh, it's gone. Oh, that was going back to the question of approximate age, you know, like, so everyone gets so worried about it, you know, and
They do.
Yeah, and I'm very much like, there's so much to worry about in our world. I'm like, look, not worry about it now when they're, you know, 1 year old.
Yes.
So when would you typically think that it'd be great for a parent to reach out if they're starting to think, oh, you know?
Yeah, sure. So I have done assessments for the youngest thumb sucker I've ever seen was a 9-month-old.
Oh, gosh,
And
how would you do anything for a 9-month-old?
exactly. So I was looking for underlying issues. And in his case, there were actually some issues, and he did actually go on to need to see an ENT. He had some real breathing issues.
And what were they, tonsils and adenoids and stuff, or?
The big tonsils, the big adenoids, the snoring, the mouth breathing during sleep, that whole thing. So usually what I say to parents, Donna, is if you have concerns, like if your gut instinct is that something is not right, I'm happy to do an assessment from any age.
Good idea.
Between the ages of 2 and 4, children are quite likely to outgrow the habit on their own. Okay. Once they hit that sort of 4 plus 5, it's getting a concern. You probably need to start looking at an assessment if there is something underlying going on, and start making a plan to get rid of that habit.
That's good. Okay, that's fantastic. So thumb sucking's number one, of course. Everybody's worried about that, so that's great. They can reach out to you with like, and that's what I say again with my parents. Like, nothing is a problem, and you do nothing. You're not doing anything wrong until your parental instinct starts to think, oh, you know, maybe I need to get that looked into. So that's
exactly.
The other really big thing is a tongue tie, which when I was looking on your Instagram today, I was having a little peek again. You had posted that either some dentists or orthodontists don't believe in tongue ties or something like that? Or or like, what was that you posted on your story about the tongue tie?
Yeah, so I had a mum come in to see me just last week, and she said to me that the orthodontist that they'd been working with had told her that tongue ties aren't a thing. It's a male orthodontist, and I just kind of, you know, I can't help but think he's never tried to breastfeed a tongue-tied baby.
Isn't it interesting?
You know what I mean?
When you're obviously so passionate and specialize in this, which is amazing, and I love sleep and parenting and stuff. But the interesting thing, you can have an expert who's really like an orthodontist. It's kind of in the field, and that's crazy to me. It's like so much I see in allergies and sleep and stuff, and pediatricians and doctors just won't agree to it, and I'm like, what? So
I know.
So with the tongue tie thing, and, you know, I look back because, again, our kids are older, and one of my nephews has just been diagnosed, but he's 12 and he's not going to get it done, but he's got a lisp. He had really bad reflux. He was a screamer. He couldn't feed. So when people go, oh, this is a new thing, and, you know, I'm like, no, it's not actually. It's like people weren't educated. We didn't know. You know, and so now we look back and we're like, well, and now it is really common. Like, you know, you can really see some of them, and you can hear the clicking and that. So that's crazy to me that some orthodontists don't agree with that. So with the tongue tie then, well, all I know is if it's pretty bad, you need it released. So when you're talking about that tongue tie, is it more like a bit more of a minimal one where you can work on that, or?
Yeah, so not all tongue ties do need a release. And I tend to be fairly conservative in my approach, especially because a lot of the children that I see, a lot of children like your nephew, they had all of the symptoms that were overlooked, but they might come in to see me at age 5, for example. Okay. And then I can see that there is a tongue tie, but for a release procedure, we need to start thinking about general anaesthetic. Because a 5-year-old isn't going to happily, I refer to dentists to release a tongue tie using a laser. I have several here in Canberra who will do a wonderful job, but that 5-year-old child isn't going to sit in that chair happily. Okay. So then I start to think, should we just do some myofunctional therapy first to improve the function of the tongue with exercises and see how much improvement we can get, and then reconsider for a release a little bit later down the track.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. Now, mouth breathing, that's another interesting one, right? Because I'm a mouth breather, always have been. Asthma, allergies, I've tried to mouth tape, I've tried to do whatever. My kids, you know, I had big tonsils and everything. So if someone like myself, when I was a kid, would that be something that I'd still have to go to the ENT and I could still be able to be supported by someone like you to not mouth breathe?
So it's, if for me to successfully work with someone who is mouth breathing, it can be a habit, right? So after a while, it can become a habit. But they need what we would call a patent airway. Okay, so their airway needs to be open. If they have an obstruction, like I'll give you myself as an example. I had nasal surgery a few months ago. I had a very, very, very deviated septum and 4 enlarged turbinates, which was restricting flow through my nose. We could do all of the exercises in the world and it's not going to get you very far. Okay. No. So in some cases, people will need to go down the ENT path. And I say to first and foremost, to me, mouth breathing is a health issue. So if you're unable to nasal breathe for a reason, that reason should be addressed.
Okay, let's talk about me then. I'm 49, for example, because it's been my whole life and my children, and I work with so many kids. I have had 3 sinus surgeries. I can breathe through my nose. I've had all the turbinates. I've had everything done.
You've had it all done.
All done, right? But I naturally mouth breathe still. So it would, so is that something I still...
So for you, it sounds like a habit, right? You've had all of the stuff done. A surgeon has confirmed now that your airways are open.
Right.
So look, breathing can be quite a complicated thing. When I work with someone who's mouth breathing, what I will do is try to retrain oral posture. So if your oral posture is correct, if your tongue is in the right spot and your lips are closed, you'll be breathing through your nose. Now, for some people, they might need to go a little bit further and work with someone like a breathing practitioner. There is such a thing. There is such a thing. And they have nifty little components and tests that they can do to look at your balance of carbon dioxide and all of these. It's breathing is actually more complicated than we think.
So were you a mouth breather then with all of that going on?
Not during the day. So during the day, I could breathe through my nose, but at nighttime, I was snoring a lot and having drops in my oxygenation level.
And is that okay now?
It's much better. Much better.
Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. So I'm going to go to a breathing expert. I'm going to write that down for me. All the mums out there that are mouth breathing as well. You know, you wake up in the morning, you're like
mouth is all parched. It's not nice.
And the thing is too, I'm obsessed with sleep. I'm obsessed with sleep myself, with my children for the last 20 years. And I've been to a sleep expert myself last year and everything was okay. But I think it's the mouth breathing. I still wake tired. I go to sleep. I'm protecting sleep hygiene and I wake and I'm like, I'm still tired.
So we know that mouth breathing interrupts sleep, not often enough to wake someone.
I'm waking all the time. So that's why I'm obsessed with it, is that I probably wake 5 or 6 times during the night, but I'm not awake like I go back to sleep straight away. So it's not like I'm what's the word? I'm sleep sick, but you know, I can sleep, but I'm just waking a lot, you know.
So it will interrupt the sleep cycles and prevent people from getting into those deep, important stages of sleep.
Might be my last piece of my puzzle. Sleep. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So that's all fantastic. So so with the mouth breathing, be able to help with that, and tongue, all of that snoring. So again, snoring could be your tongue position, possibly, if it's not your tonsil.
That's right. So your tongue should rest in the roof of your mouth. So tip of the tongue just behind your upper front teeth, and then the whole body of the tongue runs all the way to the back of your throat. And in that position, it supports your soft palate. when your tongue is low in the mouth, and I see people who snore with their mouths both open and closed. When you snore with your mouth open, you tend to be able to get those really good loud snores going. It's a bit more quiet when you've got your lips together.
Right.
But it can be the sound of the soft palate vibrating.
Gotcha.
That is snoring.
It's
so by working on the tongue position, we can reduce snoring.
And so obviously when you're working with the smaller children, it would be a lot more challenging because because they obviously when they get a bit older, even 2 might be a bit small, but as they get a bit older,
absolutely. I find for me the worst age in terms of compliance, that 2 to 4. So I quite often have mums, best intentions, who just call me up and say, we've tried and we just can't get this child to engage.
No. And that's the thing. You don't want to add stress, like you said, onto them.
No,
it's a massive issue, and then by the time you get to 4, they don't want to do it anyway. So
exactly,
pushing them. So probably over 4 would probably be.
Yeah. So I find a good age usually to start therapy, my functional therapy, is around 5, when those kids are getting off to school. They're starting to listen better to other people, and
they're around other children that they probably don't want to thumb suck. They're sort of, as sad as it is, they're saying to be aware that it's not something that everybody
exactly.
Well, that's amazing. So I've loved that conversation, which is great because, like I said, I have so many people talk about it. Even with the dummy, people are like, I don't want to give the baby the dummy, but it's such a good soothing tool, and I can still get baby sleeping beautifully with the dummy.
Yes,
not 100% because it does interrupt sleep, but it's a very big soothing tool. But I think this is really great for people to. I'm so glad that I found you. I can't even remember. That's why I love Instagram. I'm like,
Instagram's great. Yeah.
Someone like you, because I talk about there must be I always think there must be like a dentist that does it, but you are absolutely just focused on that. Exactly what I talk about with my parents. So that's fantastic. So obviously if parents hear this and they're like, right, I need to speak to Jaimee, how's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media at Happy Faces OM. You can also find me on my website, happyfacesom.com.au. Okay, I'm pretty approachable. You can send me a message, send me an email,
and I'll put all of that in the show notes too as well. So, is there anything else that you'd like to share about what you do in regards to?
We sort of touched base on dummies a little bit, and I just thought maybe I should give a bit of an age guide as well for the dummies. So I always like to point out that even though I'm all about the muscles of the mouth and everything like that, I'm not anti-dummy.
Yes, neither am I.
Dummies. I'm a mum. My firstborn, he had a dummy for a few months. It was a lifesaver for me. We also have some pretty good research available that suggests that dummies are protective against SIDS in the first 6 months of life.
Yeah, it's in the SIDS guidelines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's research that supports that. So I'm not anti-dummy. I do like to point out, I think parents need to be able to make informed decisions, right? I do think that we need more information out there for parents so that they can make a decision what's best for them. Good, valuable, correct information. So unfortunately, dummies, if they're used for a long time, just like a thumb sucking or finger sucking habit, will have an impact on the growing mouth and the muscles. And the muscles are really important. So because of that, I generally recommend that we say bye-bye to the dummy around 6 months, which is when a baby is going to do a shift in their brain from being primed to suck to starting to be learning to chew. So that's a good time to get rid of the tummy. It's developmentally that's theoretically, from a developmental point of view, that's going to be an ideal time to get rid of the dummy and start giving them things to chew on instead of a dummy to suck. And that's going to just minimize the possible impacts that the dummy can have on the muscles. So the dummy can have quite a big impact on tongue function and swallow patterns and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd recommend 6 months too. Not everyone wants to do that at 6 months, but again, biologically, when it's not like a switch that they turn 6 months of age, but around 6 months of age,
Yeah.
sleep-wise, biologically, their sleep patterns are like adult-like.
Sure.
That's around 6 months, so that's all
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah, so that's fantastic. Now, what was I going to say? I keep remembering. There's too many things in my mind to ask you, but the dummy. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. Sorry. I often recommend too, if they're going to have the dummy, just for bed. So
100%.
would that be a good idea to recommend? Because obviously you see babies with it in their mouth all the time, would obviously not be as a good idea to have it in their mouth all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about an oral habit of any type,
Yeah,
we talk about severity of the habit.
yeah,
So when we're talking about severity, we're looking at things like how often are they sucking, how hard are they sucking, and how long are they sucking. So a child who is sucking on something all day, really hard every day, it's going to have more of an impact on a child who sucks less,
yes, of
right?
course. Makes
So
sense.
I agree. I tend to say, so in America, dummies are quite often called soothers,
Yeah,
right? And that's really what we should be
yeah,
using dummy
yeah,
for,
yeah, that's
soothing.
right. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jaimee. I've really enjoyed that conversation. So, like I said, everything will be in the show notes for everyone to contact you. And thanks so much for being a guest today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, Donna. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much.